Find your seats, please. Find your seats. Thank you.
can't get his surface.
I saw it, huh?
They're having problems getting it.
Find your seats. Find your seats. We'll start in just a minute. All right. Welcome back. Welcome in everybody from upstairs. Appreciate it. We'll run a raffle later. What Michael Cooper is going to talk about, and everybody should know him because of the Help My Facebook Ads Suck book. If you haven't read it, you should get it. It's your step-by-step guide to getting started. And then, of course, always test your own stuff and find what works and leverage the hell out of it to sell more books. Next up, Michael Cooper, Finding More Readers.
Can everybody hear me well?
Yeah.
All right. So we're just having a dongle problem, and then we'll be any excuse to say that word, right? So for anyone who doesn't know me, my name's Michael Cooper. I write science fiction under the pen name MD Cooper. I've written. I have a couple co-authors, but altogether we've written 60 books now. So we've got a couple. As of 2 years ago. So this time 2 years ago, I had 4 books. So it's been a bit of a ride these last couple of years. Yeah, thanks. So back when I had very few books, the whole release fasting was just sort of coming into being. Michelangelo was first started doing it, and so at that point, the idea was to advertise it, to use that as a way to build things up for yourself, and that's kind of what I got into. And I wish I could show the graphic now for this because I've moved more quickly than I thought I would. But in the first 4 years of having a book out, I moved between, I want to say like maybe it was, we're going to go for it?
It's up there.
It's up there.
Oh, we got the new dongle. All right, we're going to do a quick swap.
I guess my dongle's bad.
Burn that one with fire. We'll pray it all comes back nicely for us. Ta-da! Look, it's one of my covers.
That's an awesome freaking cover.
No,
That's awesome, yeah.
it is not recognizing this properly for me now. Come on, you. Put things on the right screen. No, it's not going to cooperate. You guys are going to have a seizure if you guys have to see that the whole time. You're going to be okay. You live? All right, so we're just going to go for it. So this is what and I was happy with this. Look at that. So this is what my first 4 years looked like. You can see that in July 2012, I released my first book, Out System, and I did pretty much everything wrong. I had no idea what I was doing. And then I released my second book, and at the very end of that is my third book. And they kind of look like really nice big spikes, right? You're like, wow, look at that. Like, he sold like $700 in 1 month. That's pretty awesome when he released his second book. But back then there was less competition, and that doesn't actually represent my costs even. I don't think I covered costs with that amount of sales. So over the course of 4 years, I maybe had paid for my editors and my covers. And so we started advertising, and something happened that was a little bit different when we started advertising. When I say we, it's my wife and I. We did a lot of that. That bigger spike kind of on the left there that's highlighted, that was a book bub on one of our books. The spikes I was showing before, those ones to the left of that. So this is basically your books not on advertising and your books on advertising. This is what can happen. Yeah. That dip that happened was 5 months without releasing, which is actually kind of a great way to show that with 5 months without releasing it. I was able to keep my books up with only, at that point I only had 4 books above $10,000 a month purely through advertising. So it's a testament to that. And it's a testament that ads do work, because it wouldn't be one of the largest industries in the world if they didn't. Facebook ads work, AMS ads work, and other types of ads work too, and we're going to talk about some of those today. So I'm walking away from this, so I can't remember what my next slide is. Oh yeah, crazy things I'm going to say today. I'm giving you guys fair warning. Rising tide does not float all boats. I was waiting. Craig's got, like, probably, if he knew I was going to say that, he'd have things to throw at me. There is no algorithm, and fail fast. So I'm going to tackle there is no algorithm first. I'm going to come back to the other ones later. People always talk about the algorithm with Amazon. They're like, there's the algorithm, and it's specifically designed to keep me down. So I was a software developer for 20 years. If you were in the last session, I mentioned, like, I built the back end for Obama's WhiteHouse.gov site. I've built things like I built a lot of the Edge server system and some of the tools behind that powers, like when the Grammys happen. Comcast Regional Sports Network, built a lot of the back end stuff for that. So I've built a lot of things, and what I can tell you with honesty is that there's no one algorithm that runs things at Amazon, and there's no man behind the curtain like cackling as he changes the algorithm. Amazon runs what's called a lot of microservices, a lot of distributed systems. They communicate via APIs. They have entirely different teams running their search on Amazon.com versus the teams that run things like AlsoBots versus bidding on AMS ads. Some of these people don't even know who each other are, and they use APIs to communicate with another. They're releasing new code hourly, and there are probably 1,000 algorithms behind Amazon. So there's no one thing that's going to make it for you, and there's no one thing that's going to break it for you. But if you rely on some sort of black magic that is going to sell your books for you, then when that black magic stops working, you're screwed, because you don't know what's selling books. You need to know what sells books and be the master of your own destiny by selling books when you want to who you want, and not trusting Amazon to suddenly make them sticky and sell them for you. I mean, it's nice, and it does sort of happen for a variety of reasons sometimes, but it's not really something that you can rely on to sell books for yourself. So I want to ask a question. Who here has run a successful ad campaign? Like, raise your hand. Do you think you've run a successful ad campaign? I was expecting more hands than that, to be honest. How many has run a, well, I mean, you would define your own version of success. Like if you normally sell one book and you run an ad campaign, you sold 50, I would say that's pretty successful. How many of you run a successful ad campaign for months and months and months that made money and was profitable for months and months and months? All right, good. Then I've got people I can speak to here. The other one, everyone else, you can correct me when I'm wrong. That's what we can do from here. All right, so some of you guys might know this, but because this is in my book, and actually, who's read my book? Who's filled out the spreadsheet? Everyone else, one of you guys, you might as well just take out a $100 bill and just burn it, because that's about what you're doing by not filling out the spreadsheet. You can't do anything. I need to be in the light. You can't do anything without knowing what success looks like. Any advertising campaign has to know here's where success is. And if you haven't filled out the spreadsheet, you know what your read through is, you know what your cost of acquisition is. You can't ever know if you're successful. If you don't know you're successful, one of 3 things will happen. You'll be bang on, it'll be perfect because you're amazing and you don't need to test anything ever. That's me. I make just as many bad ads as good ads. You're gonna have ads that are burning money and not giving you any return, and you're not gonna know it. Or you're going to have ads that are amazing, not realize it, and shut them off. My poster child for this is Barry Hutchinson. He writes the Space Team, Dead Man Stories. He was running an ad, and he was running for a 99-cent book one. He's like, this thing is just losing money. He says, there's no way this thing will ever make money. And I sat down with him. I said, what's your read-through? And he had 5 books out, and he realized that he had a 500% ROI with his read-through. And he was this close to killing that ad and stopping Facebook advertising. And by not doing that, Barry now is able to basically get rid of all of his trad pub stuff and go completely indie and makes a lot more money than he ever used to before, because he understood what ads were working and then doubled down on the things that were working. So hopefully you guys can kind of see this. It wasn't that well easy last time. So I have a spreadsheet. I'm going to link to it at the end of this. It's linked to in my book. I'll put some information up in the group. But you have to put in for each one of your books. And you just have to do this. If you're not doing this, it's because you hate yourself. I kid you not. You put in if you're in KU, you put in your page counts. That's what the KNPC is. You get on the KDP info tab. You put in your price. You put in your royalty rate. You put in your delivery fee. Amazon charges you money to deliver your books. It's in the spreadsheet. It's different for every single country. But you pick the U.S. or something like that, wherever you sell the most books. They don't charge it to you for 35% royalty. They only charge it to you for 70% royalty. Omnibuses, they can actually charge you as much as like $50 to deliver the book if it's really big. Or you put a bunch of graphics in there, you might find that Amazon's charging you like 80 cents to deliver your big, heavy graphic, heavy book, versus what these are usually mine are around 11 for a 350-page book. It works out what your net dollars are for every time you sell a book, your net reads if someone reads the whole book, and then you put in your sales and your reads, and it works out all your read-throughs. And by knowing your average read-throughs, you now know when you sell book one how much money you make. And that is really critical because usually if you're advertising in a series, you're selling book one. If you don't write series, it's a little bit trickier. You have to rely on a lot more back matter and effort to make sure people read through. So this is the numbers that the spreadsheet gives you. So in this particular scenario, I know that every time I sell book one, given my average difference between page reads and sales, I make about a little bit over $16 every time I sell book one. Which means that as long as it costs me less than $16 to sell one 99-cent book, I will actually make money in the end. And this is actually how it works. Because provided your readers don't hate you and leave, but you'll know that because you'll fill out the spreadsheet and it'll tell you what your read-through is. It can tell you other things too, like if you have really good read-through till book 3 and then you have nothing, you screwed up. You should go read your book 3 reviews and see why no one's reading book 4 anymore. So you can learn a lot of interesting things from that. Once you know how much a sale is worth, you know when you can fail fast. So one of the things I do for myself is I like my ads to work really well, so I treat KU as gravy. And I kind of basically, if I can't make my money back on my sales alone, then I want to hone that ad and make it work better until I can be profitable on sales alone. And now when you want to fail fast, which is to basically say stop doing things that aren't working and put your lead behind things that are working. And that's like a okay saying, right? Someone laughed at me. Okay. I'm embarrassed. I said something terrible. I was a double entendre. I didn't realize. I usually need to make those. So fail. Now you're just giggling at me. All right, so yeah, you want to fail fast, and that's something that I learned in software development: is stop doing things that aren't working as quickly as possible and start thinking and do things that are working. And you can't fail fast unless you actually know how much your ads are costing you and how much they're going to make. So in this scenario, where a good average place to start with conversions is you assume that 1 out of 30 people that lands on your Amazon product page is going to buy. I know we all cry about that. We're like, everybody that lands on my product page should buy. They should see my cover and my book, and they just become like, click. It doesn't happen. I'm sorry. I don't know why it doesn't happen. I would buy my books if I land on my page. But and if you assume like 30 cents per click is a good place to start, that means it costs $9 to sell that first book. Now, in theory, because I'm making about 16 with my KU reads, it's okay, but that's kind of high. But if you think about it, now you can look at that and say, okay, if this is where you started when you're running an ad, say, if I could get my cost per click down to 15 cents, now it's only $4.50 to sell that first book. And if I can get my conversion better, down to maybe 1 in 15, now I'm looking at just a little bit over $2 to turn around and make $6. So you know the knobs you can start turning. You know the things that are working and not working. And you have to know that before you can be successful. What is my next slide? Yeah, as you cry because you realize you're spending $9 to sell a 99-cent book. But the way things are these days is that there's a lot of authors out there, and I can see you all, so I know you're there. And we're publishing a lot of books. I think I heard Data Guy say something along the lines of there's like 80,000 books a month being published right now or something like that. It might be lower, but even if it's like 50,000 books a month, that's a lot of books. There are a finite number of readers with a finite number of hours and a finite number of dollars. There is a point where we'll hit something that I call peak author, where the supply and demand starts to offset. So you have to figure out where you can. Well, there's a couple things you can do, but one of them is. So this is sort of my counter. Not the rising tide doesn't. Rising tide does float all boats where the tide is rising, but indies basically cover the globe now. So the tide is going down somewhere where it's rising. So your options are go where the tide is rising, or find out if you can put more water underneath your boat somehow, or wait, and the water will come back. But this is the next slide. I got ahead of myself there. So I term this thing peak author, where we're starting to reach a point where there are more books being put out than there are readers to read them at any significant volume. And it's something that might make you worried. And I think a lot of people see that. You're like, back in the day, you used to be able to release a book. There used to be more 7-figure indie authors than there are now, just to give you guys an interesting stat. Because there's more of us, and the readers are spread more evenly across us. However, there's the group of people that read books every day. A guy just came up here and just said that he's read my books and he loves them. He reads like 2 books a night, and that's pretty awesome. One of my readers said he reads each one of my books in an hour 45, and they're 80,000 word books. There's a very small number of those people. There's a larger group of people that read like maybe a book a day, a couple books a week. There's another group of people, and they are the lion's share, that read 3 or 4 books a year. Those are people where everybody read 50 Shades of Grey, everybody read Harry Potter. And they are the significantly larger number of readers that are out there. And the interesting thing about them is they're not on Amazon buying books very often. And if you're only running AMS ads, they'll never see your ads because you only see those ads if you're on Amazon buying books. So these people are never going to find your ads. They're only going to see ads that reach out to them where they are, magazines, TV, that sort of thing. But they're the largest number of authors, or of readers. So that's how, and this is a trad pub thing. The trad pub people know that. They call them the casual readers. And that's the people that they target when they really want to have a breakaway hit. So there's other things too, like for example, the print reader, they actually, in dollars, are still as big as they're still larger than we think they are. They're as big as the ebook reader. There's not as many books sold, but in revenue, they actually equal the amount of revenue of ebooks. And that was something Data Guy had in a recent presentation he gave at the Nebulas. But a lot of people who read print books don't realize their phone can read Kindle books. I talked to a surprisingly large number of people who are completely unaware of the fact that their phone is also a Kindle. And I've actually run ad campaigns where I mention and I talk about stuff like that, and those ad campaigns actually do convert well, and able to get people that read those books. And then you can also do other things like looking for non-Amazon readers, and you can also work on building your brand loyalty. Of course, non-Amazon readers means going wide, and then brand loyalty means selling more things to your readers. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. Because in any business, it's a well-known thing that the fact that the acquisition of the customer is more expensive than just selling them more stuff, which is where the release often stuff comes from. If you've already got them, just sell them more stuff. But it doesn't have to be books. There are other things you can do that you can sell your readers that will make you more money. So these are kind of some of the big things I want to talk about in marketing. And Facebook, I think, is the best one for us right now because it has the most people. Newsletters are great because they're cheap. I'm going to talk about AMS Advantage ads, not the regular ads, the Advantage ads. I'm going to let the genie out of the bottle because not very many people know about these, but they spend your money and they are profitable even on 99-cent books sometimes. So they are amazing. My best ACOS is on them are 28%, and my worst ones are 150. So they are quite good. I'm going to tell you guys how to get them. It's going to be amazing. Facebook ads, BookBub ads. I can do okay with BookBub ads, but I can do better with Facebook ads. So I put all my money into those. I'm going to talk about things like Pinterest ads. Actually running ads on Pinterest. Pinterest is amazing. Pinterest is, for one thing, I think it's the largest porn site in the world. I'm not joking. Don't go find out right now. You'll get distracted. It's also like the backup for Tumblr. I'm pretty sure that's actually what Pinterest is. Tumblr's backup. I actually do print magazine ads, and I actually know they're working, and I'm pretty sure that I'm doing ones more expensive right now, but my cheaper ones are actually profitable. Direct sales and then using Patreon combining with BookFunnel are all ways to run your readers through this round of things and make more money off of the same number of readers and make your ads more profitable as well because they're going to get you more. So I'm going to dive into Pinterest ads. Pinterest has a lot of people that read a lot of different genres. I write science fiction, and I actually do really well with my Pinterest ads. They let you bid cap. Those let you bid cap is at 10 cents per click, so that's what I bid cap at. And they blow through my $10 a day by like 9 o'clock in the morning most days. And but the interesting thing is people on Pinterest are not interested in buying books, right? They're looking either at porn or they're looking at like the latest recipe that they want to make for Halloween or something like that. So they're not like primed to buy a book. However, they click the link like crazy and they end up on the website. And on my website lives my Facebook pixel. And because Facebook knows everything about everyone, when someone comes on your website and the Facebook pixel is installed, Facebook knows who that Facebook user is. And that's to do with cooking and them being logged in. They do some other magic with IP addresses and stuff like that too. But that lets me build a new audience of people that are interested in my stuff that aren't any type of interest that Facebook knows about. They're people that saw my stuff on Pinterest, clicked through to my website. And this shows like some of the stats I get. I get about, from Pinterest alone, I get probably about maybe 100 visitors a day. And I take that Pinterest audience, and you can make custom audiences off of your Facebook pixel. So what I do with this is I can make a new custom audience that's everybody that visits my website. I can pick particular pages, which is what I do for my print ads, because I have a little QR code on there, and some of them do actually scan the QR code and go to the site. And I know now that these are people that will actually buy more, because these are people that buy science fiction magazines in the grocery store, and they will buy print. So I actually market print to them and stuff like that. I can do certain giveaways and whatnot. I can do like a big giveaway, and anybody goes to my certain page, I can create a custom audience of them, and then I can run specific ads to them. Because also, just like your product page on Amazon, not everybody that sees your ad and is interested in it immediately clicks it. I have a lot of my fans who say to me they saw this ad of mine on their Facebook feed for months, And then finally, I wore them down, and they clicked it, and they bought my book. And some of them, I think, they said they probably saw it 20 or 30 times before they clicked. So what I want to do is I want to make it so that these people are constantly seeing my name, they're seeing my brand, they're seeing my stories, and that finally, at some point, I'm going to catch them when they're weak, you know, and I'm going to get them to buy. And I can make all these custom audiences too, and then I can build lookalike audiences. Like I have a lookalike audience that's massive of people that click my science fiction ad in Pinterest, and then I remarket to them again. And I'll show you what my recent ads look like for that. So what we have here is these are people that I already paid 10 cents to get them to my website, and now I'm marketing them on Facebook, and I'm going to pay 16 cents to get them to convert on Facebook, which isn't actually that bad. It's still 26 cents, and for me, if I can get someone hooked on my books, I make $200 from every single sale of book one, because all my books are in one universe. I made sure when I started doing it, I wanted to write one big long series and thought, I'm going to be marketing the same book one for like the next 5 years. That is not going to work. So I split it apart into 21 separate series, and now I can market 21 book ones. But they all directly cross over with each other. So if I hook someone, they buy them all, and it's pretty close to $200 that I make when someone does that. Because the assumption is that if you sell a book, you'll have a commensurate amount of KU activity as well based on your averages. So it's up over $200. So if I pay 26 cents per click to get them in, and even if my conversion rate is 1 in 30, I'm paying $9, I make $200. So I know that this is still an acceptable thing for me to do, and it's allowed me to create an audience of people that even Facebook wouldn't let me hone in on. And I was able to grab them from Pinterest, where they weren't looking about books, thinking about books, and bring them to my website, get them thinking about me, and then go from there. And then people that click on this go into another audience, because I know they clicked on me in Pinterest, they clicked on me in Facebook, and I'm just showing them different things and more things and stuff like that. And I move them down this funnel until that time when they're weak, you know, and I capture them. That's what it's all about, getting them every week. All right, I got lots of time here still. So this is just the math on that. Another thing you do is video ads. And you gotta do good video ads, and they gotta be short. They can't be too terribly long at all. I have the benefit, I do photo shoots for my covers, and then Andrew actually films the models at some points where they're wearing like all the costumes and stuff like that, and then we actually make video out of that, and I run those video ads. Video ads don't convert well, because half the people out there don't seem to realize they can click on it and go to the place you're trying to send them. But what I do instead with my video ads is I turn around and I make audiences out of those video ads. So this is an audience of men who watch more than 10 seconds of my video. And this actually is some lookalikes, but so I've got people who already engaged with me, who sat and watched my video for 10 seconds, who didn't watch it in the last 4 days, so I'm not like bothering them too much with my ads. And then boom, 4 days later, after watching 10 seconds of my video, they're gonna get this other set of ads. And then after that, they're gonna get another set of ads. And I keep working through this chain of ads. And again, wearing them down is my goal. And that's a great way, and just because Facebook loves video, you can get, like I think these ones are a little bit high, but most of the time Facebook video ads are around 7 to 10 cents per click is what you're gonna pay on them. Sometimes they're a little bit higher, like that one for whatever reason, I decided to charge them more for it, but you can still make pretty good money. If you're wide, you have to start getting a lot more creative, because with Amazon it's pretty easy. You have this massive number of people who have expressed interest in the Kindle, and you can market to those people pretty easily, but if you're wide, you're like, crap, how do I do that? And you might go into the audience, and so the audience, for those of you who haven't made a Facebook ad before, it's just where you define interests. You know, if you're doing romance, they like romance, maybe they watch a couple of TV shows that fit well for you, and they express an interest in e-readers, and you build your audience out of that, and I think you fairly well narrow down to people who do that. But if you want to market to Apple, then you say, okay, I'm going to make sure they also own a Kindle, or an iPad, and maybe they've got like an iPhone of some sort. But that doesn't actually work that well. It actually costs you a lot of money because it narrows your audience down too well. So you just simply change where it delivers. So I have a Wise series that's on all the places, but also an Apple Book. And so what I do with that ad is I just simply say only show this on mobile, and in the second part scroll down a little bit, and I say only on iOS devices. And now I've taken this ad and shown it only to people who are holding an Apple device in their hand. And then I'm marketing them an iBook book that is, in this case, is actually free. And that one went down from, like, it was charging me 35 cents a click, and now it's charging me 10 cents a click just by making that one simple change. And so Facebook has a lot of ways you can hone who you're showing things to and where you're showing them things to. If you have like a book that deals like in vigilante justice, you can market to red states. You can actually do that. You can pick state by state, or you can even pick political affiliation, and you can market your vigilante justice book to red states. I talked to a guy just the other day, Rami. He wrote a book that's a story that happens on McGill University in Montreal. He targets current McGill students, and he does very well actually selling this book just to people at McGill. because he's able to do that. You can do that sort of honing. So you can be clever about it. You can maybe find the town where your stuff takes place, and and maybe like make some sort of ad that's really targeted toward them, and you can end up doing quite well with that sort of thing. So there's a lot of creativity that you can have in this stuff. I'm going fast, so I want to leave lots of time for questions. So if I go too fast and you guys have no questions for me, I just have lots of filler. I got a little dance I can do. When you log into AMS, if you don't see that at the top of the screen, you have the wrong kind of AMS ads. Anybody who got the UK ones, for a while everybody learned that you can go to advantage.amazon.co.uk. You guys call it co or do you say CO? I always say co. Co. Okay, cool. You're supposed to answer me. I'm looking right at you. Come on. Help me out, Allie. All the slides will be available afterwards. You don't have to take that many notes. So if it doesn't look like this, you got the wrong one. You can also, a lot of people have got this one for the UK, but they didn't realize they could get it for the US. So this is my all-time spend in my AMS Advantage ads. And there's some stinkers in there that have brought my average down. But I've spent $16,000. And in the sales value for books I've actually sold, no read-through, no KU, is still positive. So that's pretty darn good. I do about 50-50 for KU. So that means that with that alone, I've made well over $30,000, maybe almost $35,000. And if you consider read-through, these ads have probably made me, I did some rough math on around $90,000. So I plugged in 16.8 and I got 90,000. It is the best machine in the universe. The big differences between these AMS ads and the regular ones that you get through KDP is that these ones spend your money, which is pretty nice. They also give you some fancy things. I'm giving a plug to Diane Capri because she and I chat a lot about this sort of stuff. Like half this knowledge, well, she would actually hate me. I said half this knowledge comes from her because she doesn't want that. But if you look at the top, you'll see you see these ones at the top of search a lot of the times. These are called headline search ads. And if you have the Advantage AMS account, you can make them. On the bottom right, you always see those buggers, like they got their ads underneath your blurb. And like, God damn you, how'd you get your ad underneath my blurb? Those are the product display ads for Advantage. That's where they go. They don't always show because every now and then Amazon co-ops it and puts their Kindle Spotlight thing in. Another way to tell if you've got the right ads is when you click Create Ad, you should see three things there. It shows your product display as being the janky, stupid ones on the right-hand side. But when you actually make them, they're those ones that sit underneath the blurb. So that's how you know. And those are some of the other things you get. Also, the cool thing, they don't accept a blurb. It's like on the KDP ones, you got to put in a stupid blurb, wait for someone who doesn't understand English to approve or deny your little blurb that you wrote. There's not even a spot to do that. As a result, they are instantly approved. So that's pretty cool too. There's no waiting time. It also tells you that if you run these AMS ads and they don't work, your cover worked because they saw your cover and they got to your page they didn't buy, which means your blurb sucks. So they're actually kind of handy for doing that little bit of detective work as well. This is one of my best ones that I've been running, and you can see I've spent $25,000, and in sales of the books marketed, advertised, I've made $6,000. So it's like 2 to 1 that I've got coming off of that ad right there. And then the other really cool thing about the Advantage ads is that you can put more than one freaking book in the same ad, which is amazing. You don't have to make a new ad for every single book. It's like it's the best thing in the universe. You're running a series like I am. Every time you release a new book, you just plug it into the ad. And you can see the second one down, Destiny Lost. That's a 99-cent book, which means this particular ad has sold 1,500 of them. And I've got a 58% ACOS on a 99-cent book, which means I'm spending 58 cents to sell to make 35, which seems bad. But then you think, I've got pretty good read-through, so it actually does really well for me. So it's a really great program, and I'm sharing with everybody how to get it. These are the instructions, but you don't have to worry about copying them down because I'm going to put it in the group, and I'm also going to make all these slides available to everybody in the group. They're a little more complex than this, so if anybody has any questions, they can always ask me, because there's a certain point where it asks you a few things, and you need to know the right answer to get them. You have the most important thing is use an email address you've never used before. They exist for the UK sites. You want to advertise in the UK with AMS. This is the only way to do it, and Canada. So you can AMS advertise in Canada with this as well. These are some examples just of some print ads I've done in the past. These ones I run in a sci-fi magazine, and I've actually got readers. I've got reviews now where readers are saying they saw me in these magazines. So if you research the right magazines and you make the right ads for the right magazines, you can actually make some money at it. And actually that bottom on the left is only $300 to get that in a magazine that has 90,000 issues sold. So it's not that bad actually if you consider how many people are actually seeing that sort of thing. And then these are some examples of ads that I've been running. That ad on the left there has been running now for 2 years, and I'm paying 9 cents per click right now with that ad. So you can, if you really work at it, you can make ads that work really well. This is, if you were here last year, this is the Find Your Starship ass ad. So what I determined, I was like trying to make ads, and like I need an ad that really creates like an evocative feeling in the reader when they see it, that like has like childhood memories or something. And for me, I thought, what about like when the Imperial Star Destroyer came over at the beginning of Star Wars when you first saw it? You're just like, oh my God, you know. So I'm trying to find an image like that, and I did. And I was jealous of all the women because they could all the romance officers because they could do man chest. I'm like, what is this? And I can't do woman chest. So, but I found starship ass. So I've got it. So my thing is find your starship ass. And if you get some of those ads, you can like I just be a warning. Any sci-fi authors, don't use this image. Like 700,000 people have now seen this image associated with my book, so don't put it on your covers. I'm sorry. I've ruined the image for everybody else. It's got a typo at the beginning too. The third word's a typo, and this ad has made me about $35,000. So I live with the typo because I don't want to destroy the social proof. Of course, if you change the ad, if I fix it, I lose my social proof. Like my 300 comments and my 3,700 likes all go away and stuff like that. So I wouldn't want that to happen. It also goes to show that sometimes that stuff can be okay. And then the other big thing, when you're making ads on Facebook especially, you just want images. You don't want to use your book cover. You want like an evocative image of some sort that really grabs the reader and make it contrast with the Facebook feed. You got to think about where it's being shown because it's going to be on this big blue and white screen. You want to make something that's going to stand out from that big blue and white screen. And then other marketing ideas, I talked about building brand loyalty, and that's something I do a lot of. We've got a lot of stuff as authors. So one of the things I've made is I've actually made this thing is my art and covers book. This is about 1/3 of all of my covers. And I just made this art book for it. Because a lot of my fans said, and these are cheap to make, they cost like $5 to print on Ingram. Or maybe like $8 with shipping and everything. They said, like, I only ever see your covers like tiny or black and white or not at all. I'm not going to buy your books, but I would love to have all of your covers. So I made this. It gives me another thing to market, gives me another thing to put my newsletters, it gives me another touch point with my readers. And on top of that, the other thing I did is I made a calendar for 2019 that gives me more things I can sell my readers, more brand loyalty. Now they're going to see, they're going to see my calendar on their wall all the time every year, all these different images reminding them of the series and whatnot. And the added bonus I said is you really with this, you're getting 12 glossy prints for $25. And I think I got them in the mail last week and I've already sold out of my first run that I had for them. So Christmas cards. I put a thing in saying when you get Christmas cards, I now have 330 mailing addresses for my most rabid fans. So I can that's a pretty big holy grail thing, and I can now market to them in that respect as well. And I can say, hey, I've got this new book coming out. You can send like little postcards and stuff like that, reminding them that books are coming out. So there's lots of ways you can stay in touch with your readers and keep bringing them back in as we're in this world where there's more and more authors putting out more and more books. I mentioned the calendar. I actually have a card game coming out. My characters in my books always play a card game. I'm actually working out the rules. We've been play testing it here at the conference, so I'm going to start giving that out to my readers and stuff like that. And then a really big thing in Facebook now is video on your page, not in your group. It's this interesting thing that's a lot of people are realizing they can do, because video on your page you can turn into ads. So doing a lot of short videos on your page, not in your group, and then running those as ads is working really well because Facebook loves video and they want it to be nice and cheap. So something like just even doing a 5-minute reading of your book, if you're comfortable doing that and you think you can pull it off, and then making an ad out of that can actually be a great way to get more engagement. And like I said, Facebook does ads for cheap. So then anybody who can stand your voice for 5 minutes, you can because you can track, you can get the metrics and how far people listen and whatnot. Then you can send them lots more ads, and you're going to send them a much better chance of converting. And then the last thing you can do is you can do fun stuff. This is something I like to do, where you share your playlists. I'm not in the light, am I? You share your playlists with your fans. Like, this is what I listened to. I wrote the book, and you ask them to tell you what you listen. This works great for newsletters because anything that's not a yes or no answer, you get amazing feedback from your fans in newsletters. So you say, hey, this is the playlist I listened to, I wrote the book. What do you listen to when you read my books? And they will send it to you. And you can do some cool stuff like that. And then there's a guy named Nick Thacker who might be in the room here somewhere. He will produce an album for your book, and then you'll be amazing. He does that. I actually have an album for my book called Out System, and he put the album together, we sell it, and the fans buy it. And actually, this is from a value add standpoint. For my fans buy the album with the special edition book, it's $75. And I sold 15 of those. And I've sold a lot of the albums otherwise, but I've got 15 people that's like $75. I will gladly give you that money for this special edition book that they've already read and already owned, and this album that they could have got for $10. And then the other big thing you can do is I recommend everybody really start working on Patreon, because Patreon is a way where you can be directly involved with your readers, and you can couple that with BookFunnel. And you can actually use Patreon and BookFunnel to deliver books to your readers. I do that right now. I've actually sort of built my own subscription service where all of my wide readers can just sign up for $5 a month on Patreon, and they get all my wide books. So I'm able to give them the same sort of thing while having a direct relationship with them. So there's a lot of great things you can do to build up more loyalty. And I have a $50 a month tier on Patreon, and I have patrons that pay that tier. So there's a lot. And the funny thing I found was if every time I get making higher tiers, people would sign up for them because they want to support their authors. So there's a lot of great things you can do to get more value out of those readers you already had, and also makes so every ad you run has more value. So you don't have to say, like, I'm just selling a 99-cent book, I've got to turn a profit on this. I get to turn a profit on all this stuff now every time I bring a fan in. And it makes all of those ads, it makes me feel a little bit better if an ad's not great, because I know if I hook people, they're going to have all this other stuff. All right, so I talked really fast, and I finished my slides, which I actually didn't think was going to happen. So I have time for questions. So I think we have 13 minutes for questions. So I was going to go for 20, but I failed. I'm going to put this all up in the group too, so you don't have to frantically write those down if you don't think you can. Rami.
Do you have any stats on how to calculate lag time for read-through?
Sorry, which?
Lag time for read-through, like, you know.
It's a pretty tricky thing to calculate. You'd have to, what you would probably want to do is take a release. You'd have to do this over a certain amount of time. You'd have to take a release and track how long it took a certain number of people to get through the latest book, and then log that information, and then look at your major numbers later on. So say, for example, in the first month, you had 90% read-through, or actually you had 60% read-through in the first month, and then 6 months later on an amalgamated body of data, you had 90% read-through. That tells you that about 55% of the people read in the first month. So you'd have to do some sort of experiment like that, where you look at read-through early on and read-through later on and try and calculate out. That's probably the best you can do. It's muddy, you know, but it's kind of what you can pull off. Yes?
Hi. I'm getting conflicting advice. How many books should you have out before you start to advertise?
Well, luckily, if you do the spreadsheet that I showed you, and you start with like an average of like I showed, like 1 in 30 people will convert, and it's 30 cents per click, that will tell you that it's going to cost you, say, in this example, $9 to make a profit. If your read-through can't equal $9, or whatever sort of base average, that's an average I recommend people start with. A lot of people do much, much better than that. But if you can't get enough money out of, say, a 3-book read-through to cover that, then yeah, you don't actually have enough books to advertise yet, at least through Facebook. There might be other venues that can work, but that's something I recommend greatly is figuring that sort of thing out. Yes?
Hey, I noticed on your slide, your KU income's about 2/3 to a third of your sales.
Okay.
Right?
Yes.
So you said that you judge your ads based on sales and KU is gravy.
Yeah,
I
KU is
noticed
gravy.
with a lot of my ads, some ads cater better to KU, some ads cater better to sales. How do you not alienate your KU sales when you judge the success of your ads?
I don't care about my KU sales.
You don't at all? Okay.
Yeah, in AMS, I only advertise people that aren't, well, not only, but I specifically target people, authors who are not in KU as well, because KU makes us less money. KU is going to kill us all. I mean, it's also because I make less money. I have a series that's not in KU that makes more money on Amazon than it did when it was in KU. It makes 40% more than when it was in KU. Plus, I make the wide money. So I work really hard actually on targeting people who are willing to plunk down $4 or $5 for a book versus getting $2 for a book. So that's why I don't worry too much about alienating that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I've seen a number of posts of people saying they got smacked down by Facebook and Amazon for targeting to readers of other authors, like, oh, I want to target this at readers of The Expanse.
Right.
Do you know what the restrictions are on how you can and can't target people?
Well, I mean, I've never heard of anyone who got the ban hammer for targeting another author. That's not actually against Facebook's terms of services. I would actually have to see a response from Facebook that said that. I do know that some folks, like the man standing right behind you, his main character is the name of a porn star in Germany.
The porn star is named after my main character.
All right, yeah, the porn star was named after his main character. So he tried running an ad, and as it turned out, he was mentioning a porn star's name in his ad copy, and Facebook kept denying his ads. So it could be things. There are a lot of weird things, and the downside is there's a human. I actually mentioned that I made this one funny ad where I said, you know, I would show you this thing, but it's NSFW. 90% of my ads were shut off in the next 10 minutes just by putting that. I didn't have anything that's NSFW. I just said I would show you, but it's NSFW, so I won't. It took like 4 months to finally finish appealing all of those ads that they shut down. I had to go through actually the next day and recreate almost all of my ads. So the downside is you don't know, and they're kind of capricious. I don't have a lot of good advice for that one, other than don't have all your eggs in one basket. Really, that's why I do recommend people advertise in a lot of different fashions. I think were you there first? Yes, of course you were.
Regarding Facebook pixels, do you have any really good resources for learning just what the heck they are?
So it's basically just tracking code that gets put in your website that tells Facebook who's going to your website. It's actually kind of neat. It even gives you analytics about the people coming to your website, like Google Analytics does and stuff like that. I could talk for an hour on how you get the Facebook pixel installed. Hopefully your web designer, you can talk to them about it. I'll see if I can find some links for it. I'll put it in the group as well. That might be a good way to tackle that. I know Facebook has a bunch of help. I just don't know how helpful it might be for someone who's uninitiated. But actually, one version of the Facebook pixel is actually just it's a 1 pixel by 1 pixel image. And you just put like in your footer, and boom, you're all set. So that's actually, I'll put a post that explains how to do that. Jeff.
Thanks for being here, Michael. I really appreciate all the information. Just a quick question, two-part. When you say we should use a different email account for the AMS Advantage ads, or go incognito, why?
Well, because the reason why I mentioned going incognito, some people, they have a momentary panic attack where if you log, they don't realize Amazon logs you in the same account everywhere on everything. So if you create this Advantage account with this brand new email address and you go to KDP, it'll be empty. And you'll be like, my God, where'd my dashboard go? So I always recommend just making sure you're segregated. I always run mine in a different browser so I never have to worry about my main account getting logged out. Because it's also just a pain in the butt to have your main Amazon account logged out. That's it.
And the part two is, why is the Imperial system better than metric?
It's not. The metric system is better. Especially science fiction. All science fiction should be metric. That's right. All right, yes.
Do you pay much attention to your Facebook ads frequency? I was surprised when you said that some people had seen it 20 or 30 times. You just kind of ignore the frequency?
I keep an eye on the frequency if my CPC starts going up. If my CPC stays low, I don't worry about too much. But if my CPC starts creeping up, I notice my frequency has started creeping up, then I know that I'm barking up the wrong tree effectively at this point.
But if the CPC is good, you keep it going no matter.
Yep, like that ad I showed that's been running for 2 years, it's starting to get a pretty high frequency, but the CPC is still 9 cents, so I'm letting it roll. You can also just lower the price a little bit too. Sometimes I find if you're like at $10 on a given ad, just lower it to $5, and because what Amazon's trying to do, but Facebook's trying to do is spend your money, because that's what they want to do. And they'll target low-hanging fruit first, but if they can't, they'll start targeting more expensive bids. And you can see things like, or they start just showing it over and over again. So you might see frequency go up. So as long as you can take an existing ad, just drop it down to $5 for a couple of months, and everything becomes nice again. So another option too. Yes.
Have you used Click-to-Messenger with chatbots at all?
I haven't actually used any of that. No, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I find that stuff to be so annoying that I don't want to do it to anyone else. So I don't. So. I think my readers too. My readers are basically curmudgeonly old men. And I feel like they burn me with fire if I started doing that to them, so I don't. So sorry, I don't have a lot on that one. Yes.
First of all, where do you get all your caffeine and where can I get it?
My caffeine?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I do talk fast. I apologize.
My brain's starting to catch up.
We should do a transcript of this to go along with the video.
So, do you have any tips for advertising your audiobooks? Because I don't have real-time recording on audio.
Yeah, it's pretty awful.
Because I'm going through a distributor,
Oh.
it's a month or 2 months afterwards, and
Yeah.
then I have to try to recreate. So is there some, I know you don't want to add an extra step by making people click through.
Yeah.
But is there a way to click through your website or click through something so you have a little bit of a reflection of what kind of success you're having?
What might work well is to try and find something like use something like Pinterest, or use maybe a Facebook ad with a really low cost per click bid cap, and send them to your site, and then use the Facebook pixel to capture them, and then at least you start to build an audience of people that you know are interested in audio, and then you can start marketing to them. I also do some audiobook giveaways every now and then, and I start to build a list that way. And then GDPR makes this difficult. You can't actually, under GDPR, take an email list that you have and plug it into Facebook and say make a lookalike audience without telling all those people you're sharing the information with Facebook. Actually, side note, if you use the Facebook pixel under GDPR, you also have to mention that you're sharing your information with Facebook by being on your website. It's got to be in your footer and stuff like that. But you can start. So I'm working on the same sort of idea. I'm starting to try and I make audio-only email newsletters, and I track who clicks on them and stuff like that. I'm trying to build an audio thing. I wish that Amazon would just make it so we could do AMS for audio, but they're verboten products, so I don't have a lot of fantastic answers other than just trying. Generally, you had to segregate them out. Yes.
When would an author use negative keywords in AMS?
I don't actually use any negative keywords yet. I know that you think like, oh, he doesn't. I want my ads to show as many places as possible, and actually, I advertise on myself a lot, which sounds terrible. And if you look at I look at my numbers sometimes, I think I am probably paying Amazon a ton of money to advertise on myself. But Amazon is pay to play now, and if you want to be at the top of your own search results, you have to pay to be there. So I don't use, and that's where most people use negative keywords to filter themselves out of their search results. But if ads work, which we know they do because the whole thing exists. Two people are going to be above you on search results, and people will click them, and now and if someone's good at advertising, they're going to target you well, and now they're going to be on someone else's product page, reading their description, maybe getting interested in their book, forgetting what they searched for. So I advertise for myself. So I think that's why I haven't used them, because I think it's where most people do use them, is to exclude themselves, and I don't do that. So I don't have a good answer there either. Man, I don't have any good answers now. Sorry, folks. Yes. Last year, excluding free. There we go. Exclude free. That's a good one.
So if you use the Amazon Advantage dashboard, does that mean you can't make any ads with actual ad copy? It's just the book cover?
It's just the book cover, and they work better. So that should tell us all something.
Thanks.
You bet. We're all bad at writing ad copies, what that tells us. Although I heard recently you don't have to do it with KDP anymore either. KDP and MS. I haven't used it in so long, I had no idea. Yes?
I was wondering if you could speak to audience creation and then audience tweaking, what you do to tweak your audience or make your relevancy scores higher.
So I try to cast my net as wide as possible. In my particular genre, in science fiction, author names work best. In other genres, actually general interests seem to work better. And I think it has to do with how many people are targeting author names. And luckily, in my neck of the woods, they don't get targeted that much. So I try to cast the web as wide as possible at the beginning, and then I filter down, usually by adding in like maybe certain shows they might watch, stuff like that, and I bring it down that way. And if I find that my cost per click is too high, then I widen it out again further. And I'll sometimes have like as many as 70 or 80 interests built into an audience just to get it to be big enough. Because as soon as you put in like e-reader, then something plummets back down again as a narrowing factor. Usually I find that if my relevancy is bad, I'm marketing to the wrong people. So I kind of start again in that respect. Or I swap out the image entirely, is usually what I do in those two cases to see which works better. Usually when I make an ad as well, I'll make the ad copy and audience the same, and I'll use 5 or 6 different images, and then whichever one performs the best, I keep that and kill the others. So that's usually right off the bat gets me in a pretty good place.
And then follow-up question, if you have an ad that's been doing really well for say a month or two and then dies, do you ever revive it at a certain point?
I usually rotate into a different country.
Okay.
I'll take that same ad and I'll just run it in the UK for a while, and run it in Canada, run it in Australia for a while, and I'll try and bring it back to the States, and sometimes that brings it back. Because if it's working well, I usually imagine I can just put it in a different country and have it work well. That's actually a good thing. Never run your ads in more than one country at the same time, because the way Facebook builds what are called cohorts, the categorization items they have don't exist across countries. So if you do cross-country ads, you actually narrow your audience a lot more, because they may not even have certain categorizations in different countries. So that's why I use that. I focus on the States first, and I'll rotate it through the other countries and then bring it back, and you can revive sometimes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
You had to only advertise the first book in the series, right?
On Facebook, that's what I do, right?
Yeah, okay.
On AMS, I advertise them all. I used to advertise them all on the KDP AMS. That didn't work as well, but advertising them all on the Advantage ones actually works pretty well. And for me especially, because I think most of us write serial series where you have to kind of read the whole thing through, because you get better read through when you do that. So that also I think works well. I do every now and then, if I have big drop off, say from like book 3 to book 4, if I had like a long time between release, I might run some ads then to try and like bring people back that might have just forgotten about me in the meantime. And I am done. I got the big end, and there's no questions. I think it's perfect. And Craig didn't even come up and pull me off. Thanks for that.